values to valued culture. Here is your host, Will Scott, interviewing another CEO about leading culture in their company.
Today we have Will Scott, founder of Culture Czars, and in addition, he owned and grew two software companies. One of them is over 20 years old in internet years. That's like 250.
Making me sound old now.
Early adopter. No, you're just innovative. Yeah. So what Will does, totally, he talks to CEOs that care about corporate culture, and his purpose is to help CEOs create environments so that employees love where they work and why they work. And today's episode is brought to you by The Culture Fix. This is Will's life's work on culture boiled down into the most important aspects you need to know into a book. And you can go to cultureczars.com to pick up a workbook that will help you start implementing a great culture. And it's completely free on their website. Who knows if he'll charge for that, but I think he should. He has been sought after by many companies to create this, so he actually finally did. And Will, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Happy to be here.
I want to talk about the Culture Fix book, and specifically in one of the chapters 9, you talk about, culture can be kind of squishy, and people have different opinions on it, and can it be quantified? And in this part, you talk about almost the final word about ROI. And there's two ways you measure that. So why don't you talk about the ROI piece?
Yeah, I do. I think about two things when we come to actually understanding the ROI, return on investment. And one of the things that I stress about this is that culture is one of the initiatives that you can drive in your organization, which actually has a very low cost to it, a very low capital input, but a very high benefit and output, and therefore the return on the investment is very high. And by the way, it's a fun thing to work on. But yes, low investment, high return, and fun. So there's your ROI, and I am very passionate about being able to measure this. And there's two ways that I talk about measuring culture. One is in terms of the health of the organization internally. And so I like companies to take a survey at least once a year. And I have one on my website that they can find too, where they can take this 20-question survey that'll help them rate the health of their culture in their organization based against my recommendations. And they can do that once a year. They should certainly do that at the beginning of adopting the 9 deeds in 90 days, and then again at the end of having done that to measure their health. And there's lots of things they can do ongoing too each week. One thing to measure is the number of nominations that they get for core values when they do their monthly awards. You can also do like a gut check kind of a thing, and as a CEO, just keep a score on that. And then there's also more financial metrics you can do. Again, in a great culture, so I'm coming on to now the second thing. So one is measuring the health internally. The other is the performance, the financial performance of the organization. Companies with a great culture, and there's been quite a bit of research on this, are higher performing organizations. I can mention sort of public companies like Apple, like Southwest Airlines, like Virgin, who will have very healthy cultures and perform well financially. The opposite is also true, by the way. I can mention companies like Wells Fargo, whose cultures are publicly, were very bad, and now they are paying the financial consequences. I also like to think about a company measuring that, so measuring their top line growth and their bottom line growth. And one example I gave you is a client of mine called CEO is David Nance. He's leads Sabre, the world's largest pepper spray company. And he credits, when he started investing in culture, his company started enjoying double-digit growth as a top line. Yes, he did other things, of course, in that time. He may have hired salespeople and other things, but he credits the turnaround culture for that improvement. and is being able to measure that.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of the foundation, right? So everything builds from that.
Yes, absolutely. A lot of my CEOs in the other podcasts where I've documented their interviews, they will say, yeah, culture is the number one thing. Work on that, and the rest of the things will fall in line.
Yeah.
So, yes.
I mean, it's funny because, we both talk to a lot of founders every day, and they got into the business for whatever reason, the pepper spray or whatever it is. And what they didn't realize is their number one job is hiring talent. It's not no longer what they started off doing. It's hiring talent, right?
Yeah.
And how do they keep that talent?
And then how to keep the talent, and then the environment about how that talent works together. Yes.
Yeah. So it's funny. Like, I never dreamed this is what I'd be doing, whether it's good or bad.
Well, I think it often happens you're right. The entrepreneur, he starts focused on the product or the service and delivering and getting clients. He hires a few people to help him. And then at some point, he sort of looks around and he says, wait, what's happening here? How does this feel working in my own company?
Yeah. Oh, my God.
And why do I put up with that employee? And why can't I get more employees like him? Well, then I think they start to focus on culture, and they realize, oh, my goodness, yes, when I've got a great culture, everything is going a lot better.
Yeah. I mean, I remember on the extreme side of things, I was talking to someone, I won't name names, but he felt that he was not happy anymore going into his own company, and he had a bottle of, I don't know what it was Jack or whiskey or something, literally in his drawer, and he would kind of just retire to his office, and he wouldn't want to talk to anyone.
Close the door.
And he eventually ended up just wiping the slate clean and getting rid of everyone because he just didn't enjoy the culture he created, and he knew it was his own fault.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the danger. Why, if I don't know if he created it or just by not managing it, default kind of, he was left with a default culture which didn't feel good to him. But yes, proactively managing the culture. Maybe on the second time round he did that, and then hire people that fit that and make it all work a lot smoother.
Yeah, so measuring the ROI, what was one thing you remember talking to David about Sabre, what he talked about that was really important in implementing your strategies to attain that double-digit growth? What was one big takeaway for him?
Well, again, a lot of his employees are factory workers, and they had this mentality that they were kind of shipping aerosol cans. When we got underneath their core purpose, then they realized that, oh my goodness, they're actually saving lives. And then he did some interviewing, and he made some personnel changes on the floor, like some misfits were exited, and he hired some people that were a better fit. And when he'd done those things, he was able to have a higher output because the sales were growing, but he went from 2 shifts to 1 shift.
Wow.
And had a whole bunch of savings there. And so that was one way. So his sales went up, but his costs went down, and that's how he got this great ROI as a result of investing in his culture.
Yeah.
Since then, he's had to add a second shift again because he's growing so fast. So, yeah.
I love that you talk about that, because some people, their objection in their mind, at least that I've heard, are, well, I can get the executive staff on board, but why would someone who's working at this position even care about our mission? And I imagine you get some of those that push back, right?
No, it makes a huge difference, especially manufacturing, because then you're talking about the improvement on quality as well. So if I'm just shipping aerosol cans, what do I care about an aerosol can? Oh, wait, this aerosol can could save someone's life. Okay, maybe I'm going to pay a bit more attention now. I'm going to care about the way the label is applied, that it's the right label, that I'm putting the right quantity in the box, that I'm testing it appropriately, that I'm putting the cap on that it's going to fire when in that emergency. Yes, the care level goes up once they have that core purpose, that reason for being, that why to their work.
Yeah. So bottom line, there is an ROI to culture. So
yes, and you can measure it.
You can measure it. And you mentioned something. We'll mention two things at the end. You can go to cultureczars.com, pick up the workbook. We'll explain in a second, but there's another thing that actually helps you measure internal health of your company. So tell people, where can they get that? And then we'll talk about the workbook.
Yes, one of the resources on the website at cultureczars.com is a culture survey where if they fill out just answer, and it's multiple choice, just answer the 20 questions. Each question has a 1 through 5 rating. Then at the end, I generate a score and give them some recommendations depending on what the score was from that health survey. And I love folks to take it when they start working on their culture, because 12 months later, take it again, and they will see how their score is going up. And they will also just be able to look around their company and feel the difference. Mm-hmm. And I'll be hearing great things from their team about.
Yeah. What about the workbook? What's in that?
Oh yes, sorry. The workbook. Well, I actually have 2 workbooks. But the one that we're talking about, is the free download. There is the one that helps you discern your core values in the first place, if you haven't already got them. And then the second one, the rest of my program, and the one that the Culture Fix talks about is, okay, now you've got your core values. You don't just want to have a poster on the wall that's words. How do you make those come alive? Use them for the organization to thrive, and then ultimately drive performance. That's the 9 deeds in 90 days. That's part of the second workbook and part of my workshops, and also described, as I said, in the book, The Culture Fix.
Thank you, Will. Everyone check out cultureczars.com. Check out his book, The Culture Fix. And thanks again.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at cultureczars.com, and we'll see you next time.